Hey friends, this is Carissa and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Inky Fairy Designs. Today I'm going to do a little bit of watercoloring to create this card along with some heat embossing for some added dimension and texture. So I'm using the Woodlands set by Prima Marketing Ink. I love these little pan sets. They've got 12 colors in them and they're just so easy to pull out and paint with. So you can see I'm adding a little bit of water to my paints before I get started just to kind of activate them and get them to be easier to lift the paint when I'm ready to use it. I am using a Prima Marketing water brush to start off my painting with, and I started off not even thinking about where my shadows were going to go or my light source was. I don't really plan ahead. So you can see on the first few mountains I did, I shaded them on the other side, and then I decided, oh, look at these, look like they're in front of the mountain, so I'm going to keep my shadows there. I will end up going in back over here and fixing that, and in the end you can't really tell that I made a little boo-boo there starting out. This video is a little bit longer. I wanted to keep quite a bit of the portion of watercoloring real time for you guys. I am loving all of your responses to my giveaway that is currently going on. I'll put information in the iCard here. You can check that out. It is still going on, so you can see what it is all about and answer the question which I'm asking: what do you want to see on my YouTube channel? And I've seen a lot of people mention they want to see more watercolor cards, and how to color stamps with watercolors. So I was inspired by all of those responses and decided to put this card up on my channel this week. So here I've sped it up. You can see I'm still going in. I'm doing a little bit of wet on dry brushing or dry painting to get started on this card with the mountains. And all that means is that my paper is dry, and then I bring in the pigment, and then I spread it out with my paintbrush and create those shadows and highlights. This is probably my favorite way to start off painting stamps or images like this. And I am going to do very similar here with the kind of ground that I'm going to put in front of the mountains. So I am starting off with a little bit of wet on dry, and then I will move the paint and spread it out further down into the paper, and I will then move into wet on wet painting, where I just continue to drop color into that area to blend it all together, and do that while the paper is still wet. So this is a great way to create really fast backgrounds and such on your cards. Just blending that out, kind of softening this line that went up into the mountains. And I'm going to bring in a different color green here and just add a little bit more dimension. So I am really happy with the way that turned out. Now I'm going to move to my favorite watercolor brushes, which is the Silver Black Velvet. This is a number 4. I could have totally gone with a larger brush for this area. Probably in hindsight, I would have pulled out my number 8, although I think my number 8s are all ruined. So I need to replace those, which might be why I pulled out the 4. I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm going to do some wet on wet painting for the sky. This is my favorite way to create like large washes on a background or skies. So I am just wetting my entire paper where I want to create the sky. So anything above the mountains. Once that is nice and wet, I am going to start adding in my colors, starting with this really bright yellow. It is super vibrant, and I add a lot of paint to my sky here. So you can see I've slowed this portion back down to real time so you can see just how I drop in that paint and start to blend my sky together. So I'm going to go in with this red, and I'll be honest, When I first dropped in that red, I thought, oh boy, that is pretty strong. In hindsight, again, I would have diluted that color down to make it a little bit softer. I mean, that is why we have mixing wells in our paint pans, but I just was not, I was not thinking about it. I just wanted to create a really quick and simple card. And so I'm blending it together, and in the end it works. But yeah, I was thinking that later I probably should have diluted that just a tad to get a little bit of a softer look. And it really overpowered the yellow area that I had going on and kind of took it over. But I still have a little bit of that, so in the end, like I said, it does work, and it's all a process. So here I'm just creating this really smooth transition of colors. I use the yellow, which is daylight, the reddish color, which is foxberry, and then I wanted to create kind of like a purple, but I didn't have a purple in my palette, so I mixed mist and let it blend into that foxberry, and it created a really pretty almost violet color. Then I felt like it didn't have enough of a transition or darker area at the top, like that blue was not as dark as I wanted, so I brought in that shadow color, which is kind of, you know, like a black, and added that at the very, very top and blended that back into the mist. So once I have that first layer down, I'm just going to continue mixing it. Here I've sped it up again. I'm just going to mix it, keeping my brush strokes very smooth and even across the entire length of the card. Tilting up the paper moves that paint down, and I feel like it really smooths those transitions. Now I am going to add a little bit more yellow into the sun. Like I said, that red really took over that area, so I added a little bit more yellow, tried to drop it in there and bring it back out a little bit. It helped, and I'm pretty happy with it. Then I just splashed a little bit of clean water on there to add some dimension to it. And now I'm pulling out the Ink on 3 liquid pixie dust, which I am absolutely obsessed with at this point. I put a little drop of it on my glass mat and then mix it with some water and add some more splashes. This adds a little bit of shimmer to the sky and honestly creates the illusion of some clouds there. So now while that is drying, I'm going to go back to my mountains and add a little bit more depth to them. So I'm going to glaze a second layer on top of the paint that has already dried. So when you're glazing, you want to make sure that that paint is already completely dry, and then you can go in and start building in some layers, adding some more depth and dimension, and just really making that portion of your stamp pop from the background, which I'm super happy with how my mountains turned out, and really loving it. So I forgot to mention that this stamp is from Unity Stamp Company. It is part of Wit's Kit card kit. I have a link of it to the subscription in the box below here on YouTube and on my blog. This stamp is not available. This was the February kit. I love mountains. I live in the mountains, or I live near mountains now. We just moved from the mountains. We still live near the mountains. And I love them, and I fell in love with this stamp, so I did sign up for the kit. So now I'm going to do some heat embossing with the new Wow Mixed Media Embossing Brush and this beautiful Bahama embossing powder that is part of the Caribbean Trio from Wow Embossing, and it is absolutely beautiful. It has it's like a mix of embossing powder. So it has like these white flecks in it. Also has some glitter, and then it has a bit of blue color embossing powder. I love the new mixed media brush because I can brush on certain areas of a stamp that I want to highlight with embossing powder. So it really makes it simple. It's just like a like a nail polish brush tip, and it really just makes it super easy. It's not super detailed or fine brush, but it works for like simple detail areas on a stamp. So when I'm using this embossing powder, I like to mix it so that I can get everything like nice and mix. Some of the larger particles will settle to the bottom of the jar, so you just want to mix that up, and then I'm pouring it on top of where I laid down the embossing. It's the embossing ink, but it's in like this liquid form. And so then I'm going to take my Wow Embossing heat tool after I remove some of the excess powder that got where I don't exactly want it with a dry paintbrush. I'm going to start, I started from the back, but I wasn't in frame, so I cut that out. And now I'm coming to the front and just letting that melt. And you can see how it just kind of turns and starts to melt. Those little white areas remind me, they kind of look like little areas of snow on the mountains. I don't know, this powder is so cool. I love it. So I'm going to actually do another layer on top. There were some areas that didn't get that liquid embossing on, and so I'm going to just do the same process. Make sure it's nice and dry first before I go in, because I don't want to contaminate my brush. Not that it won't ever get contaminated, because you guys know I'm a messy crafter, but I try. So I'm going to go over that all of those areas again with the brush. And you can see how I'm able to kind of get into those fine areas just by tilting my brush to the side. And I poured on some more of the powder. And now you can see here I start from the back because it does have a lot of that glitter in it, and I don't want that to fly away. I want it to start to melt to my paper, and then I'll bring it to the front and melt it the rest of the way. I just love the way that this adds a fun, sparkly detail to the mountains on this card. Super cute. All right, so now I'm done with the heat embossing. I forgot to mention as well, I stamped in my favorite ink, which is the Blackout Detail ink from Inkom 3, and I'm working on the Prima Marketing watercolor paper. It's a cool press paper, which is my favorite. I'm adding some of the Dina Wakley gloss spray in white. It's my favorite. I love it. I'm using it on everything. Mixed media, cards, love it. So I splattered a little bit of that on there, but it kind of faded back into the watercolor. So I'm adding some more detail with my gel pen, a few stars, and then adding some more dots just to give a little bit more dimension to that sky. It could either be a sunset, dusk, twilight scene, or it could be a sunrise scene. Just depends on the way that you look at it. So I'm going to continue adding those little dots and details just towards the top of the card where it's the darkest and where the night sky would be. Next, I'm going to take some Distress Oxide ink in Forest Moss. There is a stamp in this set that is like a grouping of trees, and I'm just really randomly stamping those onto the side of the card. Then I wanted to more dimension in those trees, so I pulled out black soot and just did the same thing. I'm only really using the tip of the stamp just to add a little bit of that illusion of trees, forest in the background or the foreground, whatever. I added some dimensional tape to the back of my card. This card kit is great because it does come with some card bases. So I pulled out the dark gray card base that was included in the kit, and I'm just adhering my panel to that and kept it super simple. Added a sentiment from the stamp kit that says adventure awaits. I thought that was pretty cute. It does come with other sentiments as well, but I liked that one. It actually just, it fit in the spot. So that's why I used it. And that's it. I'm looking at it because I didn't know if I should add some sequins or something else. I thought about adding some of the twine that came in the kit, but in the end, I felt like the painting of this card was enough. We've got that shimmer from the pixie dust, and we've got that beautiful dimension with the embossing, and I think it works. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I loved creating this card and sharing it with you. I forgot to mention a lot of things, but another thing is I did create this card for the Wow Embossing March challenge, which is going on in the Facebook group. And basically it was just to use new things, which the kit is new to me, this embossing powder is new to me, so lots of new to me things on this card. I'll put a link in the description box to where you can check out the Facebook group and join in the challenge yourself this month. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. And I am excited to bring you lots more videos this year. Until then, do something that makes you happy today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.